here we are. We've got a friendship bracelet making class for you today. We've got 3 different kinds of bracelets we're going to show you with some different methods. First, we're going to show you the easiest one. This is just made with braiding. We added some beads if you want to make it extra fancy. We've got another one here that's made by knots. You can do all kinds of different patterns with that. And we've got this type here that's made with a bit of a weaving method. So we'll show you how to make those today. You're going to need some supplies if you want to do all these projects. First of all, you're going to need some string. A lot of these friendship bracelets are usually made with embroidery floss, but I didn't have embroidery floss, and this is not a time to go shopping for craft supplies. But what I did have was yarn. So I've got a bunch of yarn here. I've got it already cut for our bracelets here. But if you've got like a whole piece, you could cut off a nice big piece of yarn, pick out your colors, whatever you got at home, that's the stuff to be using with. We also need some scissors to cut that yarn. And then I've got some masking tape. If you're a pro bracelet maker, you might not need this, but I find it useful to help me keep my bracelet in place while I'm working on it. Optional, we've got some beads here. I've got some cute little stars, but you can get whatever shape you've got at your house. That's good. And then also, we have some cardboard and a pen. My cardboard's already cut in a circle. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but if you are a perfectionist, just trace a glass, something round. You'll want a circle that you can hold in one hand. It doesn't matter how big it is. You're going to need it at least big enough to have a hole punched in the middle and still have some cardboard here. But it doesn't have to be a giant circle, and it doesn't have to be exactly a precise size. While we're here, just in case you were wondering, we do have books about making friendship bracelets and knotting and braiding, all those kinds of awesome activities here at the library. We have an awesome curbside service that you can use to check these books out and take them home without even coming in the library. All you got to do is go on to our catalog. You're going to search some different words like friendship bracelets or knotting or braiding or weaving. Whatever type of bracelet suits you, and then you'll get some results with some different books like these, and you'll just put them on reserve. When we give you a call to let you know your books are ready, you just pull up in our circle driveway, call us to let us know you're here, and we'll bring the books out to your car. Pretty awesome. So let's jump in and get started. We're going to go with the braiding one first, the knotting one second, and the weaving one third. All right, here we are with our first bracelet. We've got this cute little braided one with some beads on it. If you just like the braided style, you can go for just the braided style, but if you want to add some beads, you can do that. So what I've got for this project, I've got some yarn. I've got 3 strands knotted on one end. If you would like, you can see on this one I did a loop there. So if you like a loop on the end, you can tie with a loop. But for this one, I've just got a knot there. And I've also got a few little beads. I'm going to just do 3 on this one. If you want to do beads the whole way down, go for it. If you only want 1 bead, 2 beads, whatever you want, it'll work out. And I've got some masking tape here. I'm going to take a little piece of this tape off, and I'm going to tape the knotted end of my string down just to keep it in place. Okay, so there we go. We've got the string taped down, and if you've never braided before, I'm going to show you the pattern. If you've braided before, you can probably skip until you see the beads coming in. So braiding is just a pattern we're going to do. You can do it with a lot of different numbers of strings, but the basic one is just with 3. Basically, when you braid, your sides are going to take turns coming to the middle. So I'm going to start with this side. I'm going to bring that string over to the middle. And now these strings have changed position. Then it's the other side's turn. So I'm going to take this string and bring that over to the middle. And you can see, if we do it kind of loosely here, we've got, we've got this little bit of a woven look coming. If you want to braid loosely, you can. If you want to braid tightly, you can. I usually like the tight look because then my braid stitches end up nice and even. But you're just going to keep doing that same pattern the whole way down. You're going to go outside to the middle. And you're going to want to every now and again get the other ends of your strings and give them a little comb, because they will get a little tangled up if you're not careful. So I'm just going along doing my braid here, and after a little while, whenever, you know, there's not a specified length, but whenever you have it as long as you would like before you got the beads on, then we'll just give it a pause and add some beads. So there you go. I'm going outside to the middle. I'm going to show you how to put beads on now. So I'm going to give it a little pinch here. If you need, you can also take another piece of tape and secure it down with that tape just to hold it in place. Because as you can see, the ends here, they want to loosen up a little bit. And I want to keep them all nice and even while I'm getting my beads in place. You can see, maybe it's a little hard to see, I pre-taped the ends of my strings because the hole on my bead, you know, it's got a fair size to it, but it's not super big, and my yarn was really fluffy on the ends. And so I just wrapped a piece of tape around to keep that fluff down and help me string the beads on. So to add the bead to my bracelet here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the middle string on the bead and slide it in there. Now there's two ways you can do this. The first one, you can slide your bead all the way up and then continue on braiding around it. You'll bring those outside strings around your bead, kind of give it a, you know, like a loop or I don't know, an edge, if you want to call it that. Since my bead isn't round, if your bead is round, that works really good, but mine is kind of a star shape, so that's not working so great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other two strings and I'm going to put them through the bead as well. Now if you got a really large hole on your bead, it might be too wide and it might slide right over your braid. If that's the case, what you're going to want to do is use that, that first technique I showed you with the strings around the outside. All right, so my bead's on there. I'm just going to continue on braiding. It doesn't really matter what order my strings end up in, if it's the same or different as what was under there. So I'm just going to keep going. We'll do some braiding. And I'm going to stop there and add another bead. If you're really good at this and you think you can do it, you could try putting all three through at once. I don't think that's going to work for me because the tape I put on the end there is, you know, it's a little bit wide. So I'm going to have to do one at a time. There's one. There's two. And there's three. And I'm just going to slide it all the way up next to my braid and keep going. And now if you are just a beginning braider and you want to put another piece of tape there while you put your other bead in, or just move this tape on down, definitely go for it and do that. I'll show you moving the tape with the last bead I've got here. If you want to be really precise, you can like, you know, look back a little bit. How many braid stitches did I do there? I'm going to do the same number here. Or you can just kind of eyeball it. I'm usually an eyeballer when it comes to projects like this. So I'm going to take this piece of tape that I used to hold my braid when I put the first bead on. I'm going to take that off and I'm going to reuse it here to help me place the next bead. I'm going to do the same thing, one string at a time. I'm just going to keep braiding. You can do this for as many beads as you want. Make your bracelet as long as you want. If you want it to be a necklace, if you want it to be a bracelet that loops around a couple of times, just go for it. You can make a keychain. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bracelet. You can use the same technique to make whatever else you want. Eventually, you're going to get it long enough, and you're going to decide, I think this is the end of my bracelet here. And you're just going to tie the end off. So I'll just say that's long enough. That's not quite long enough for my wrist, but we got some other bracelets to show. So there you go. As you can see, my hole in my beads was a little wide there, so that moves around. If you think that the hole in your bead is wide enough and you wanna just slide them on after the braid is done, you could do that at this point. You would need your ends to fit through the bead all at once to manage that, or you would need some long ends that you'd have some room to get your beads over the strings and onto the braid. But so when you're done, you're just going to tie a knot, tie all the strings into the same knot. And there you go. You can tie your ends together, or if that's, all the bracelet you need, you can just cut the ends off, use those strings for your next project. There you go. We got a braided bracelet with some beads. All right, friends, so next up we are going to make a cool bracelet like this with a lot of knots in it. There's a lot of different designs you can do. I'm going to show you both this V and more of just a diagonal stripe, but there's a lot of different patterns out there. You can do a Google search for knotted friendship bracelet patterns, or some of those books that I showed you at the beginning of our video. Go ahead and check one of those out from the library, and you might find some different patterns inside based on the number of colors you have and the number of strings you had. There's just a lot of different choices out there. So to make a bracelet like this with this knotted V shape, you're going to need a bunch of strings, and I have some here. I'm going to show you how to make a loop at the start. With my bracelets like this, I like to tie a bow on the end, because if you take a bath or a shower with this on, it is going to be wet for a while, and so I like to have a bow on there so I can take it off before I take a shower and put it back on after, instead of going around with this wet bracelet all day. So if you're like me and you want that ability to take it off, it's really a great idea to start out with a loop. So if you're doing a loop, you're going to need some long strings, and you're going to fold them in half. You're going to fold your whole set of strings together. Now with this pattern, you can do any number of strings that you want. The more strings you have, the wider your bracelet's going to be. As you can see here, I'm doing a bracelet with 6 strings, so that was 3 strings folded in half. That gets me 6 in the end. So where the bracelet was folded here, I've got this loop. I'm just going to tie a knot in all the strings together. I'm going to keep my finger in that loop a little bit just to make sure my knot doesn't slide right off the end. And there we go. We've got a loop on our bracelet to start. Then when I get to the end, I'll be able to thread those ends through there and tie it up in a bow. All right, now just like with our other bracelet, I am going to tape this down to the table to keep it in place. If you're a pro friendship bracelet maker and you don't need the tape, that's fine, but I'm going to tape it down to help me keep it in place. All right, now, as you can see on this bracelet, we've got this cute little V shape. But this is actually, each V is made from 2 strings coming together. So in order to get our colors to line up in this V shape, we need to make sure we have the same pattern in both sides. We need it symmetrical. So I'm going to start with the purple on the outside. Ooh, that just wants to jump. And I'm going to put the purple out on the other outside. And then I think I'll do white next. And I'll have my blues in the middle. So I've got my strings lined up. The left side is the same as the right side. And I'm ready to get started. For this bracelet, to make this V shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from the outside into the middle. And I'm going to make a bunch of knots that kind of start out looking like the number 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your outside string and you're going to make this sort of a sailboat sail or a backwards 4 shape. And you'll see that the outside string is going over the next string, but then it's going to loop around again and go under. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that string it's going around. I'm going to hold that pretty tight, and I'm going to pull that other string that I made the knot on up. It made a tiny little knot there, but you know what? It's loose. It's a single knot. So we're going to tighten it down with a double knot. We're just going to do that same thing again. And there we go. Now, that purple string has knotted onto the white one, so we're going to move it one place over. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Got your 4 shape, loop it around. There we go. So we're keeping our bracelet pretty even. You can see we're making a knot on this string here. I'm going to do a few more just to get the shape started. And when our purple strings are next to each other, we need to tie them together. Because these are the same color, it doesn't really matter which one is the overstring and which one is the understring. So I'm just going to do it this way. And there we go. We've got our first purple V done. We're going to do the white ones next. Now for that first round there, I did the purple one on each string, and then on each side, and then I did the next purple one on each side. But you can also do it so that you work from one side at a time until you get to the middle. All right, there we go. We got our white V, and next up we're going to do a blue V, and that will complete one rotation of our pattern. Okay, so to keep going with this bracelet, all you would do is keep making that same pattern over and over again until you get to the end, and then you're ready to tie it off. So this bracelet is not nearly long enough to go around my wrist. You're going to want to keep going for a while and until you get the bracelet as long as you want. But just for the sake of example here, we're going to pretend this is a whole bracelet and that I am here at the end. I want to make some strings that I can tie a bow with. You can, of course, just use these strings, tie a knot here to keep them, aligned and together. And then you'll be able to tie those in a bow. But I think it looks a little more neat and put together if we do a braid on each side. So you'll see we've still got these two different sides to our bracelet. I'm going to do a braid over here and a braid over here. On this one, it's going to be pretty easy because I've got 3 strings on this side and 3 strings on the other side. So if you watched our last video, you already know what to do. Just give it a braid on down until you get, a tie long enough to tie a bow with. And then all you'll do is make a knot on the end, just like we did with our last one. And you'll have 1 string and 2 strings. Now my bracelet here only has 3 strings on each side, but you might have a bracelet with more strings on each side. So I'm going to back this up here. I'm going to show you what to do if you've got more strings. So maybe you have, like 6 strings here and you want to do a braid. You can still do it. It's going to look a little wider, but it'll still work. You're going to do that same method, bringing the outside string in, crossing it to the other side, that you did with your regular 3-strand braid. You're going to want to keep your braid strings in order so that the colors line up there. But you're just going to bring them over more strings than you did before. So I've got this outside string. It's crossing all the way over those 3. This one's going to cross over 2, and this one's going to cross over 3. And you can just keep going like that. You can see it's making a braid just like before, except it's wider. All right, so I'm going to set this one aside and get a fresh set of string here. And I'm going to show you, instead of that V shape, we're going to do a stripe shape. Now with this kind of bracelet, there's plenty more patterns out there that you can try out, but these are 2 of the most basic ones I see. So for this one, I'm going to make a diagonal line all the way across. And so what I want to do is I want to set my strings up in a repeating pattern that's not symmetrical. So I'm going to start blue, then I'll do purple, then I'll do white. I got to repeat that pattern now with the rest of my strings. So blue is coming next, then purple, then white. And now on our last bracelet, we made those knots and we worked towards the middle. For our diagonal stripe bracelet, we're going to do those same kind of knots, but instead of working towards the middle, we're just going to work in one direction. So I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to go to the other side. Do those same knots. Okay, so I got my one string going all the way across. You can see it's a little lumpy because all of those strings were close together, but now it's spacing out. Now I've got all my strings anchored down in the right spot, so I can just keep doing the same thing through the whole bracelet. All right, now this blue string, that's the one we did our last row with. You're going to want to make sure to do each stripe around that last one. If you don't, you're going to wind up with less and less knots to tie in each row. Got to make sure you go all the way to the end. You can see here maybe, I don't know if the ends are in the frame. So this string I haven't done a row with yet, but this string I have. And you can see that the knots you tie across the row, they shorten your string a pretty good amount in each one. So if you're doing one of these knotted bracelets, you're going to want your string way longer than the size you want your bracelet in the end. All right, so that is one round through each of my strings. You can see instead of that V-shaped pattern, we're having a stripe pattern instead. So depending on what way you arrange your knots, you can make different patterns. You can start going back this way, make a zigzag, whatever you want to do. You just plot out which way you need your strings arranged and which way you need to be tying your knots, and you're good to go. And here we are with our final friendship bracelet project. This has got a more woven structure to it. I made mine really long so I could double it up, but you can make it shorter and make it go around one time, or even longer and make it a necklace or something. But this one, you know, it's got this round shape. It's not flat like our other ones. And so we have to make it in a totally different way. So for this bracelet, you're going to need that cardboard circle we talked about at the beginning. You're going to need some scissors and a pen. And then you're also going to need some yarn. The tricky part with this is picking the right amount of yarn. On your circle here, we're going to use this as sort of like a loom to help us weave the bracelet. You are going to need enough strings so that you have one less string than the number of slits we're going to cut in our cardboard. And you need to make sure the number of strings that you have is not a multiple of 3. I made that mistake the first time I tried this out. I did a multiple of 3 and it did not work. You can see right here, I have 7 different strings. If you want, 2 of the same color, you can loop them around. I did 7 different ones just so you can see the pattern a little better. So I have 7 strings. I need to cut 8 slits in my cardboard. So I'm going to go around. I want to try and make these even. And so if I do one here, doesn't matter how big your slit is, it just needs to be big enough to hold the yarn. So if I do, like 4 in sort of like a plus shape, and then I do a little bit of a turn and I do another 4, that's going to get me 8 slits around my cardboard that are pretty evenly placed. If you have more strings, you're going to want to make more slits. You want whatever number of slits you're using, you want them to be evenly spaced around your cardboard for the easiest way to do the weaving part. Okay, we need to do one more thing to get our cardboard piece ready to go for our string. We need to poke a hole in the middle. Now if you want, you can use your scissors. Mine are the scissors with the blunt end, so that's not going to work great for me. But if you have those sharp, pointy scissors on the end, that might work for you. But I don't have that, so I'm just going to use a pen. I'm going to guess about where the middle is, and I'm going to poke a hole right through my cardboard. There we go. All right, now this string is going to go through that hole, and the knot I put in the end is going to keep the strings from coming all the way through. Okay, so I've got all my strings coming through. I'm going to pull them, and you know, if you pull really hard or make a big hole in there, your knot's going to come right through, but mine looks just about the right size. I'm not going to pull too hard because I don't need to make that hole any bigger. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to put your strings along, one in each of these slits, and you're going to have one slit left over. I'm going to put mine in any order because I just want a mystery rainbow pattern, but if you have a certain pattern in mind, you can put them in, you know, whatever order you need to get that pattern. Okay, now I have this corrugated cardboard here, so it's a little bit stiff. If you have a thinner cardboard, you might not need to do this, or if you are really good at putting those strings in and out of the slits, you might not need to do this. But I'd like to give my cardboard a little bit of a bend around those slits, just to loosen it up a little so that I don't have a super hard time or have my yarn get stuck when it's trying to come out of there. Okay, so we're set up and ready to go. We just have to do a pattern, and the bracelet's going to come out this other end. It's going to grow from that knot there. So the pattern we're going to do is we're going to take the third string and move it to the empty hole. So 1, 2, 3, that's the third string. I'm going to pick it up and bring it down here to this empty slit. Then I'm going to turn it and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. Bring that to the empty one. Here's my empty one. 1, 2, 3. And your strings, well, they're long like this, they might get a little tangled, so give them a little comb out every once in a while. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And here we are back to our first lineup. So we did one row of that weaving structure. And you're just going to keep going like that for a while. I'll do it for a little while here so you can see, you know, we only did one round, so you can't really see any coming out the end yet. But I'm going to go around a little bit and we'll have it enough to see the bracelet start coming out the other side. Okay, you can see as we've been going around, that weaving has made the bracelet grow longer. You can see a little stitch for each of the colors in each round there. And the longer you do this, the longer your bracelet will get. If you get to the point you want to stop, you can just take your strings out of here, give it a big old knot, tie it off, or you can do one of our other methods that we've done before, like for example, make a braid, so you can tie a knot and untie it when you need to, or you can tie, you know, segments off together, make some ties that way. Whatever way you prefer tying your bracelet off, it'll work with this one. There you go. There's your woven bracelet. Great job! You made all of our bracelets. Look how nice those look. We've got our braided one with beads, we've got our knotted one, and we've got our woven one. We would love to see what you did. If you made all these bracelets, if you made just one, if you went ahead and used a different pattern or a different technique, we still want to see it. Go ahead and take a picture and post it in the comments of our video here, and we'll see what everybody in our community makes. Nice job. Have a great day.